Hi guys, welcome to today's video. It came to my attention that quite a few of my friends in the woodworkers community are quite scared of mortise and tenons. There's lots and lots of ways to cut mortise and tenons. I mean, you can do it on the miter saw by setting your depth stop. You can do it on the table saw. You can do it on the table saw with a dado stack with a normal blade or with a sled. You can do it on the bandsaw. My big problem with the project I had this week was I had to make 57 little styles each with a tenon on, and then, no, 54, sorry, 54 styles. So that means I had to cut 108 tenons and I make 108 mortices. So that's a lot to cut. I managed it and I've done it, and I want to show you how I did it. I didn't use the table saw, the miter saw, or the bandsaw. I used the router with a jig that the trend Mortice and Tenons jig. I haven't seen many of them around on the web or on YouTube everywhere. So if you see this, take a look at it. It's an interesting jig and it works quite well for me. In this case, repeatability was a factor because to make 108 tenons, all the same length, width, size, to fit properly, it's quite a mission. So let me show you how I've done it. So guys, when you buy the Trend Mortice and Tenon jigs, it comes in a box like this, and there's some assembly required. So it's actually a very easy jig to use once you understand it. So it's not a big jig, but it's quite expensive. For the jig alone, I think I paid 5,400 Rand. And then you buy a set of router bits for another 1,400 Rand. There's 5 router bits in there. What makes this router bits different is the shaft is much longer, so you can make deeper tenons and mortises. It comes with a set of 5 router bits, and you get this in metric and imperial. And then of course you also get your manual. And in this case, I always believe real men don't read instructions. But in this case, this book is the little Bible of this. If you lose this, you can sell this as scrap metal. This book is very important. Every little mortise and tenon, it gives you what collet you use and what router bit you use to get a certain size. Let me show you how to set this up. So guys, in your kit you get your collets. There's one set up in my router at the moment. So what's quite important, you must have a router that the collets actually fit into. They also do have a base plate that you can add to any router, a universal base plate, which will then accept the collets. So that for me is quite important. I don't have the universal base plate, and the only little router I've got out of my collection of 5 routers is my little E-loop. It's a very old router, but a very reliable little router. So that's the collets. So the ring here is for when you cut your mortises, and the collets is for when you cut your tenons. In the book, it will give you your size of your tenon, the tenon width that you want to make it, and for that you use cutter number whatever's they got here. In this case, it's a wide cutter, 25 millimeter or 1 inch, and then which collet you use. And then as you go up to 16 millimeter tenons, which is the maximum this set can do, the width of the tenon, 16 millimeters, you just reference to which collet and to which router bit you use. So this for me is the important part of this set. You get it in this case, this is the metric guide and this is the imperial guide. In my case, the only router bits that was available was the imperial set. So I bought the imperial set of router bits, so I'll always work off the imperial table. So I'm going to set up quickly and cut a mortise for you and then a tenon and show you how well it works. In this case, what I've done is I've cut little 1/4 inch tenons. The length you can set up on your own. You can make doubles, you can make singles, and you can make the width whatever you want. So let me show you how I've done this. So guys, another thing that comes with the kit is this little rule, or the setup bar. This is quite important. If you lose this, this is useless. So don't lose it. I keep everything in the box and it stays together. So to set up your mortise or your tenon, you're going to use that. So I just mark 3 spaces where I want to make my tenons, or in this case the mortises. And on my setup bar, I changed it up a little bit and I just scribed myself a little line. That is the center of my recess, shall I say. And as you can see, it's got a little shoulder here. If you put that in there and you push it to one side, that line now matches to my little center scribe that I've marked there. It just makes the setup much easier to line up the centers of your mortises. So what happens is I put my stock in, of course remembering to always push this to the one side, line up my center mark, that is it, and tighten it. It comes with very nice clamps in the kit, a whole bunch of them. So that has now set up my line to the center of my mortise. My router bit in this case, if you look at the book, it tells you to use which collet. In this case, it's GB254 for a 1/4 inch. And the cutter that I use is a 1/4 inch cutter. I've set my depth so that the depth of my mortise will be 16 millimeters, because I'm making all my tenons 15 millimeters. Just a little bit of glue space. And then also that works with this to cut. If you use this alone, as you can see, you're going to cut quite a big mortise. So in the table it tells you to use this ring, which fits on very well. It's got a little O-ring on it, which makes it quite stiff. So you have to really massage it on there. The quality of this kit is actually made quite well, I think. They really thought of everything. And that's now the setup done. Let me cut this quickly and show you what she looks like. Let me just plug this in. One thing I learned with this machine, or with this jig, is that always have your router in the same orientation. So you can't cut one like this and the next one like this around, because the bases aren't always centered, especially on the older routers. So mine is now set up, and let me cut it and show you. And that, guys, is now one tenon cut. Let me cut another one and show you what she should look like when we put two together. Centered. So that's my two mortises cut. Let's cut some tenons. So as you can see, it's actually quite easy once you've set up your lines to quickly do a whole bunch of these. In my case, I wanted them center because my little styles go in center. So as you can see, it's a very, very nice fit. The size is always just nice. Nice friction fit. And it's a good fit. And the big thing, like I said, repeatability every time. You must be able to repeat this 108 times. Or however many times you want to do this. Let me show you how we do this. So guys, now setting up for the tenon is I mark the center line on my stock where I want my tenon, and I want a 6mm width tenon on this. The width of this you can determine yourself. So let me show you. By loosening these two, you can then now move your faceplate. And the idea is that must be in line with your mark you just made. So I'll line that up. And this is quite important that you do it quite accurately. I always double check from both sides. So that looks quite good. Tighten them. So now this, I can see my line split in half. And if I just turn it around to double check, I can see my line split in half. So if your line is not centered, your tenon is not, or your tenon is not going to be centered. That determines where in your stock your tenon is going to lie. Now to do the sides of your tenon, you must decide now how wide you want it. And that's where these little lines come in. 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch. So it's 6.35 millimeters. It's going to show me there I'm about 5 millimeters short. So my tenon is going to be from there to there. So as you can see, that's a little bit off. It's got two little knobs on the bottom. You can loosen. I want to bring this one in a little bit. I just want to move it just a fraction. Just a little bit. So let's see what she looks like now. Still a little bit. That's better. So that one is going to end up there. And that one is still on that line. No, that's close enough. You can mark it. And this is just for demonstration. So tighten this down again. And then an important thing on this is this little lip. If you put your down, so you only set up once. Once this has been set up and you got your stock, the next time you don't need any lines or anything. So I'm going to take my stock, lift it up, you press against that, because that's going to determine the depth, and then tighten it. So everyone from here on in, I will just set up with a ruler, and that's been set up now. That's ready. The cutter I've changed to the 25mm cutter according to the table, and the collet I've changed to the GB318 according to the table. Now you can see why it's important to always have the table available. Let's cut it. So there you're going to see what they're going to look like. That's just shallow, but just to show you what they're going to look like. Let's cut the depth. Guys, that's now the setup. What I haven't shown you on this side, it's got a little fence that this butts up against. So there's every last one you're going to put in now will be exactly the same as this. So once again, repeatability for me in this case is a serious issue. So to get this to work exactly, I mean, that's a good fit. That's a really nice fit. And to cut 108 of them, I mean, that's now peanuts. That's easy. Another nice feature about this jig, guys, is it can cut angled mortices and tenons. In this case, I've cut a 16 millimeter wide tenon, which is quite short. This was a project that I've built quite a few years ago. I built a park bench where we needed some angled tenons, and it came out brilliant. As you can see, there's some of the guys on the internet that don't like this jig very much. It's not always a flat surface, and that all depends on your setup here. If you always, when you set this up, push these blocks against the back, it will not do this round edge on the one side, but it's overcomable. You can get over it. So to cut angled tenons, everyone the same, where you have to do a lot of slats. In the case of the park bench, I'll put a picture on. I think I've got a picture somewhere I can show you. This is the jig to have. I mean, you can do this with a domino, but if you look at the price of a domino now in South Africa, I checked quite a few sites. It's 24,000 Rand now for a domino jig, and that's a small one, the DF500. So this didn't cost me half of that. I mean, this is just a quarter of a domino, the price of it, and I can do everything that the domino does. I still would love a domino. So yes, guys, it can also do a tenon in this direction, because this thing is fully set up. You can set up this thing in so many ways. You can set it up to do two tenons next to each other if your stock is wide enough. It's a nice jig to have, and it's a nice jig to use. But once again, it's for repeatability. If you have to make just one tenon, you can cut it by hand. You can cut it with a table saw or with a miter saw. But for me to cut a whole bunch, in this case 108 tenons, 108 mortices, this is the jig to go for. I've done 108 mortices and 108 tenons in one morning. So yes, it can be done. And it didn't cost me dominoes. Dominoes now at the moment is quite expensive. And this didn't cost me anything. Just a little bit of longer wood. So just extra stock, which most of us always have. So guys, it's a nice jig. I love it. And I've used it quite often now, quite a bunch. And I think she's worth it. So guys, that's then the Trent Mortice and Tenons jig. One of my favorite jigs when it comes to lots and lots of mortice and tenons. I've made mortice and tenons by hand, lots of them, on the table saw, on the dado stack. I even cut a lot of them on my miter saw. But if you have to do a lot, this is the jig to go for. They all work a charm. If you have to cut loads, that's the thing to do. And as you can see, they fit quite nicely. They all sit very nice and square. The depth is always the same. The width is always the same. And what more do you want? So guys, if you walk into one of these, don't just walk past it. Look at it. I think it's worth the money. Don't get me wrong. I still want a domino. The dominoes can do more. Yes, definitely. And maybe one day I'll get one.